As First Lady, Abigail brought her modest sense of living to the White House. Most First Ladies before her had redecorated the White House, often spending a lot of money and being more lavish. She made it very middle class, very conservative in its decorations. She couldn't get around much by this point because of an injury she sustained at an Independence Day celebration in 1842. While walking on an uneven part of the ground, she sprained her ankle quite badly. She wasn't able to walk at all for 2 weeks, and when she started walking again 2 weeks later, she inflamed it greatly, and she wasn't able to walk without crutches for 2 years. Although it got better, she never fully healed from that injury, and thus she was somewhat crippled by this point. She also didn't enjoy the hostess element of being a First Lady, so she had her daughter take over most of the hostess roles. Abby enjoyed this much more, and she was a charming young lady who was happy to serve in this position, and it was appropriate for her because she enjoyed it much more. Her mother instead enjoyed the opportunity to meet with important people of the literature and arts society who would come and visit her at the White House. Up to that point, presidents had brought their own private collection of books with them when going to the White House. But Abigail just couldn't believe that there was no permanent official library in the White House. So she turned the Oval Room into the White House, and with an allotment of $2,000 from Congress, she decorated the room and started amassing a collection of books. Every time a crate of new books would arrive, she would personally open it up and arrange the books. She chose a modest walnut and oak wood style furnishing for that room, but the White House Library wasn't just a place to hold books. It was much more than that. She quickly made it a hub in Washington, D.C. of culture. It became a literary salon where there would be public readings and evenings with poets and writers of the day. She entertained many female literary figures, as well as male, and it also became a popular place for other arts. A music salon was often hosted there. For instance, famous opera singer Jenny Lind visited and performed in the White House Library. Creating that library is the most lasting contribution which Abigail and, by some tokens, Millard Fillmore made to the presidential legacy. The tradition of the White House Library has been continued ever since, and that love for reading, for knowledge, and for literature was a very important legacy which Abigail left. After Millard did not win re-election, he and his wife attended the inauguration of his successor. Unfortunately, it was cold and bad weather, and Abigail caught a bad chill. Tragically, she ended up dying of pneumonia a few weeks after they left the White House because of this. And within a year, her daughter also died at the age of 22. Young Abby died from cholera, which was a serious illness that was very common in those days. Although she didn't live long beyond her time at the White House, Abigail was, unlike some other First Ladies, in quite good health at that point, good enough at least, although she didn't host a lot of parties, to be an active member in the Society of Literature and the Arts, to make that more of an important part of presidential life, and above all, to support her husband, Millard, in his presidency with her wise counsel and her good advice, and by helping him in making good decisions. She exemplifies the role which wives could have in that time in the fact that she was well educated. She helped her husband learn by even being his teacher. She was 2 years older than he, which was unusual at that time. She had had a profession before her marriage, which was an appropriate one for a woman, being a teacher at that time, and she maintained it after their marriage. And even after having children, although she was very dedicated to the upbringing and the rearing of her beloved children, she also was still involved in helping society with the founding of libraries, the mingling in Washington society, and the political influence for her husband.